Welcome to the Run to the Hard podcast, where we're here to remind you that God doesn't promise us a life free from suffering, but he always brings healing and restoration on the other end. Our goal is to inspire you to face life's trials with courage and trust in God's plan. And oh yeah, run to the hard that God allows. Okay.
All the things.
All the things.
My daughter would be like,
right.
Dad, raise your eyebrows. I want to see your eyes.
Raise your eyebrows. Why?
I don't know.
Why?
She's like, you always have squinty eyes.
Dude, that's funny. That's funny. So my siblings always made fun of me when I was a kid because I have deep set eyes. So they'd always like call me a raccoon. Yeah, I don't, it is what it is. That's how God made me, man. I don't know what to tell you.
It is what, that's funny.
Goodness gracious. Oh, all right, man. So on the last episode, Curtis, we were able to cover the funeral and how much support that you and your family got. So now we're at the point where, I would assume you come home from the funeral and you guys have a meal with people you love and who have supported and prayed for you. And at some point, you say your goodbyes to your friends and you shut the door and it's just you. So what happens in those first few hours, days, wherever you want to take me after the funeral?
Yeah, gathering things up, even at the end of the meal and loading the truck up with some flowers. We gave a lot of stuff away. There was a lot of things that came to the church for the funeral. And, I was asking her family and siblings and mom and dad, do you want this? Do you want this? And you load the truck up and you get in and you drive home. I think the most helpful thing that anybody did for me was my son and daughter-in-law. They just came and just kind of took over the house. Does that make sense? I didn't think about anything, didn't worry about anything. Honestly, I came home, went to bed. Like I just went to bed, and I can't imagine other people. I don't know what other people do in that situation, but I don't remember much from the next few days. I came home, went to bed. Obviously, I didn't have the kids. We've talked about that a little bit. Didn't know when I would have the kids. Didn't know. Nobody knew at that point. Even, Michael's mom and dad didn't know what their dad would do. Would he move away? Would he stay? Nobody knew. It was just a lot of unknowns, and that's a lot to carry. So I think for me, it was just, go to bed. I don't recommend it, but I took NyQuil and went to sleep. And don't remember a whole lot the first couple days. Was grateful for the people that came. A lot of food. People were always dropping food off. That probably lasted a couple weeks where people would drop food off. And, sometimes it was just a note on the front porch. And that was awesome. So many cards, so many messages, text, Facebook Messenger, cards in the mail. To this day, I have a huge box of cards. I've never gone through them. And I keep telling myself, at some point you need to go through them, just to track and see who wrote, what. And I will. I'm getting there little by little. I'm going through stuff, which is a whole nother subject,
Sure.
Stuff, closets full, dressers full, what do you do with all that? But I don't know.
Yeah.
Let
me ask you.
That's a pretty vague memory.
Sure. Let me ask you a question, from my perspective, being the friend.
Mm-hmm.
So you have someone who has something tragic happen and you want to support them and you bring them food, right?
Huh.
But there are conflicting opinions here.
Yeah.
Whether you spend time with them, whether they're being nice, you're overstaying your welcome. What's your opinion on, should it be a drop off? Expand on that.
Yeah, I think a drop off's good. I think read the person, for it's actually a really good question, seriously. Cause that first week, I don't want to stop talking to anybody at that point. Just thank you, appreciate it. I text. And you're also wanting to be hospitable. So when somebody says, hey, can I drop this off? Sometimes it'd be like, oh, well, yeah, hey, I'm just not in a good place. Just leave it on the front porch and let me know when you're here. Or, hey, I ran uptown for an errand, leave it on the kitchen counter for me and I'll be home shortly. So for me, I think I was pretty open to just let people know in a very, I don't know, hospitable way that, yeah, I don't want to stick around and talk. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But I think everybody's going to be different. I think everybody will do that different. Some people want somebody to come in and they want noise, they want activity, they want something to keep them busy. But I was so exhausted. It had been such an exhausting experience that I just crashed. So good question.
Speaking of staying busy and, kind of trying to find that therapeutic release in the first few weeks and months.
Yeah.
Can you describe kind of what that was for you?
I really only had one thing. I had been writing and posting all throughout the hospital. And then even before the funeral, I kept writing and people are like, how are you doing that? And I don't know how else to describe it because I've had different people say or ask me, Curtis, why and how have you kept writing? The only way I can describe it is I had this incredible fear of forgetting a story. Like it was terrifying. Like I knew grief was like taking over. I knew that I was feeling it physically, mentally, emotionally. And I just remember having this fear of I never want to forget anything. I don't want to forget a moment, a great moment. I don't want to forget like a great story. I don't want to forget my wife's voice. I don't want to forget, and so, you don't sleep much anyways. Grief just is the worst when it comes to sleep. And so, you're using sleep aids and different things to go to sleep, but didn't matter. I'd be awake at 4:35 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing I'd do is wake up and my eyes would come open and I would have a story. And I'm like, I don't want to forget it. And I would write it. And I did that, for months, every morning, wake up and write something, write a memory of something she said, write a memory of something we did. And I didn't want to forget. Now, honestly, it's been a year and a half later and it was more of a fear than an actuality. Like I'm going to remember this stuff, but I had that fear. And so for me, I would write. And honestly, I would write and cry and write and cry. There was not a single moment that I wrote that I didn't sob doing it. Like it was just, so it was therapeutic, but at the same time, and then I would go to bed. I would get up, sob, cry, write, and I'd probably go right to bed. And I did that for, I'll be honest with you, it's, but weeks before I could just get back to doing anything. But the crazy thing about that time period was, Ella was living with me full time at that point. She's older. She's made that decision. The other 4 children, they're with their dad. We don't know when we're going to see them. We don't know how it's going to work out. But Ella's therapy during that time is, I'm in my bedroom, which is next to the kitchen, and for days I would hear the pantry door, the cabinet doors slamming and shutting and opening, and I'd come out and be like, "What in the world is going on?" And she cleaned this house from corner to corner. Man. She reorganized the kitchen. She threw more things away. Like I couldn't find anything for months. She took everything and moved it around, and I just left her alone. I was like, okay, this is her thing. This is what she's doing, and she took every moment she could. And she didn't want to be out in public, but she cleaned and organized and threw stuff out. And she went through the kids' rooms. Like this was her therapy. So I was able to watch that, firsthand and see, okay, so everybody does this different. Kids do it different. Parents do it different. Everybody does it different. And so
how do you think Michal would have handled losing you? Do you think she would have written? Do you think she'd have posted videos? What do you think would have been her therapeutic release?
People. She'd have been the opposite. Yeah, she would have had a house full of people. Yep.
Okay, so she would have invited people over.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she would have stayed up half the night talking with friends. Yeah, she would have made life busy with people to keep her occupied. Oh, for sure. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And they probably would have walked away shaking their head, just like at the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, she inspired me. I thought I was supposed to inspire her. Damn.
Exactly. Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's cool. Have any of the younger kids explained to you kind of what they did? I know this was the point where you didn't know if you were going to see them very frequently. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't gotten to that point yet. And we're definitely going to cover that in this episode. But had any of the other kids kind of explained what they were doing to stay busy?
Well, we can kind of jump into that a little bit too, because I think the two go hand in hand.
Sure.
They're in school, and so the first thing I have to do is figure out their schedule, school activities, ball games, things like that, and just start showing up. So for me, it was finding opportunities to show up to school events, to stay connected, to give them a hug, to see how they're doing, to check in on them, and check in with teachers. How's so and so doing? How's so and so doing? And then it became, hey, can I have the kids to help me do something for her graveside? Yeah, that'd be great. And so it was, hey, can I have the kids for an evening to do this? We made a cross for mom. We didn't have a headstone for a long time. And so we made a cross and we glued all of our initials on the cross. And, there's 9 kids now. My 2 oldest, 5 kids plus their spouses is 9. And so we had all of our initials, and we put on the back of the cross, mom and wife. And on the front, we put her name, and we even put like a little paw for our dog Marty on her cross, and we painted it white and black, and we went out and put it on put it at the cemetery. And so I was trying to make occasions up to do things with kids that, who's going to turn that down, right?
Yeah,
we're going to do this. So I was starting to do that, and then it turned into, hey, can I take the kids to dinner tonight? Or and so it took weeks to get to this point. And then months before it became like a normal occurrence. So yeah, we worked through that, but so every time we would have time or one-on-one or with a couple of them, how we doing, and I would immediately begin telling mom stories or bringing things up about mom, so that we were talking about her. I wanted it to be the norm. I wanted to make sure that we were constantly talking about her, and it became a normal occurrence because she was so communicative with them. And, they had this mom that, who loved to have deep and good conversations with them. You're not going to believe this, but I'm dating this woman, and I'm hanging out with her and her kids for the first few times. And I never forget, we were in her van going somewhere. I think we were going to a big park to go hiking. And the kids were like, hey, mom, can we see your phone? We want to do those conversation starters. And I was like, what? What are you guys even talking about? And Michael's like, you've never done those before? I'm like, no. She's like, yeah, I just Google conversation starters. And my kids love it. They'll Google that and pull up this list. And it'll be the weirdest thing, but they loved it. And they were like these conversation starters. And or you have to finish this sentence. We'll start a story, and then you have to add your 2 cents to it. Like, they did this kind of stuff as a family all the time. She taught them how to communicate, how to think critically, how to join adult conversations. And so knowing that, and then like, okay, how can I keep that going? How can I keep those kinds of conversations going? I felt deeply like I had to continue that path and pattern for them in their lives. And we were going to remember mom this way. And we've done it a couple of times, even since then. Even now that I have them all the time, evening prayer time. It's, again, I think I've told you before, it used to annoy me because,
Right.
It's 9, 10 o'clock. I'm tired. I don't have time for I'm just tired. I want to go to bed. And even last night, we had prayer time last night, and we sat there for 15, 20 minutes and just chatted about the day and let them kind of tell jokes and this and that. And then we settled down and had prayer time. But that was such a special mom moment. And now they know why we do it. Like, yeah, it's prayer time. We're going to do this because this is what mom would do. And we're going to do this. Yeah, because we need to. It's our spiritual growth, but it's also a mom moment. It is a mom moment at night when we all gather around the couch and cuddle. And yeah, they're getting older and bigger, but we're still doing it. So.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So at this point in the story, you're mentioning that, you're showing up to the kids' events and you are trying to understand what's going on in school with them and stuff, but you haven't yet, solidified a schedule with them.
Right.
So take me to the point where you're like, Lord, Michael's gone, these kids are gone. I'm trying to be a part of their life as much as I can, but what happens to finally kind of open the floodgates of the kids are back in my life?
Oh, so we got all the way to summer, because she passed away in October. So we go through the whole winter and there's no schedule. It's just hit and miss little by little. And then summer comes, and that was hard because, they were gone a lot. And the only way I could spend any amount of time with them was to go to ball games and things. And there was lots of baseball. The kids love baseball. They're in anyways. And last summer, oh my goodness. Dad and I had some conversations, literally standing on the fence at a baseball diamond, where I'm telling you what, God just came in and did something. And I don't want to give away sensitive information, but man,
Sure.
it was just very, very powerful what God was doing in him, what he was doing in me, and then to be able to say it together and talk through it. And so by this school year in August, it's completely 2 dudes parenting 5 kids. He said, "Hey, I'm not going to fight this. There's no issues here. I'm glad you're in their lives. I want you to be in their lives." And so from August, the beginning of the school year till now, 3 to 4 days a week. There was a period where he was working a lot. I had him almost like 4 weeks. That's all God. God just did that. It was Michael's greatest fear. How's this going to work? What's going to happen with the kids? And God just did it. He just worked it out. And I know a lot of people ask that question, how's it going with the kids? And I'm trying to, Michael was such the photographer. She took so many pictures. When I say thousands, I had to sort through 26,000 pictures on her phone and then start like cleaning them up, because she didn't take one picture. She took 50 pictures to find the one good picture, but she never went and deleted them. She just hearted them.
Dude, that's how my wife is. Her phone will be full and she'll be like, I need a new phone. I'm like, lady, you got to get rid of some pictures.
I know. So Michael never cleaned this stuff up. It was just, thousands and thousands of pictures. I am trying so hard to remember moments and take pictures and, kind of keep that part of her alive, and so it's crazy. The kids love to look through pictures on mom's phone. I've kept it. I plug it in every once in a while. I keep it charged. And every once in a while they'll say, "Hey, can we look at pictures with you?" And we'll cuddle on the couch. And especially the 2 younger ones, they're the ones I was most worried about. How do you keep mom's memory alive? They're young, Yeah. And that's one of the ways is that we look through her phone regularly. And now I've got a lot of pictures on my phone. So now they're always going through my phone and trying so hard to take pictures of events and ball games and this and that, and just trying to keep up with that because it was such a big deal. And, they're going to have events, graduation events, things like that. We need to capture as many of these moments as we can. And it's another piece of Michael. Pictures in Michael, were part of who she was. And so, I'm trying so many different ways to keep her memory alive.
Yeah. So the conversation with the kid's dad of you at the baseball field and just saying like, just God showed up, man, I cannot help but think about how you were talking about how Michael would always encourage you to pray for your exes and what God was doing, man, in those moments to like, potentially soften his heart to what would happen in the future. Like
Yeah.
when you compare those two, I mean, it's just incredible.
I know. I don't know if I've said this on this platform or not, but I tell people all the time, you and I, we get to pray to God, and Michael literally has God's ear.
It's God's ear.
and,
Yeah.
and he's proven it. Like there's things happening that just can't even believe or understand, but it's God showing up, God being faithful, right? She told me even on her, deathbed, God's going to be faithful. He's going to provide. Please trust him and believe that. So
Amen.
He is. Yeah.
Amen. Man, that's going through even the initial episode with you and how we talked about how, losing Michael meant losing the kids too when you walked away from that funeral, and just seeing how God has restored us. And I know there's sensitive topics that you and her ex-husband have had conversations and whatnot, and God's restored that relationship from you both having these preconceived ideas of each other.
Sure.
But the fact that he's allowing you in is, just incredible. And like I said, just back to the praying for your exes, I just think is, it's just clear evidence that God was working.
Sure.
God was working, man. And so now, the kids are back in your life. But are there not, administrative aspects of death that are continually reminding you of what's taken place? And, just kind of share with us the things that you're like, oh shoot, I forgot I had to do that. And, just things that keep kind of, I don't know, jabbing you.
We'd taken care of quite a few things, but I think the answer to that question is that I will walk into a room and find something of Michael's, and anything she touched has a memory to it, right? I mean, I'm a year and a half out and I haven't touched her closet. It's still the same. I haven't touched her drawers. I'll get to it someday. I used to think I had to have a timeline. At first I was like, oh, when do I have to do this? Or when do I have to do that? And is it bad or wrong that I haven't done this yet? Does that make sense? Everything has a memory, So I've quit putting timelines on those things, and little by little, I'm trying to go through stuff. I went through one of her jewelry drawers not too long ago, and I found the first card I ever sent her, found the first letter I'd ever sent her. And I was like, she kept that. That's amazing, because Michael didn't keep anything.
Really?
No, she didn't.
Yeah.
And so that was a good moment. Like, oh, she kept that. That's awesome. You know what I mean? So I'm starting to go in the kids, the girls, I'll find Quinn in mom's closet, and she'll start going through hats. And I've seen her wear a couple hats or a shirt or a sweatshirt. And I've seen Ella go through. And so we're all going through that process of what do we do with mom's stuff? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think for the girls, I've just really been careful to just kind of let it lie and let things naturally happen. And they're starting to. The girls are starting to go through things, and we'll go through it at some point. But I want the kids to be a part of that. I don't want to just like pack everything up on my own because it was something I felt like I had to do on a checklist. If I can allow them to kind of be part of that process, I think it'll help. The one that was, I don't know why it was so hard, was Michael's van. If you knew Michael's story and how she bought the van when she had no credit, she didn't have any money, she was a single mom trying to start life out again, and she used to post and write about this van, and I know her close friends know the story and how much she loved that van. I've been a minivan dad. I didn't really want to be a minivan dad again, but
they're so functional, man. I mean, they really are.
I know, but this van meant a lot to her, and we drove the wheels off that thing, but man, it sat in the garage, and it was, I don't know why, it was just so hard. I couldn't drive it. I tried, couldn't work on it. It just sat there for month after month after month. One day, I had to go get something out of it, and Marty, our dog, Michael had never had a dog growing up, never had a dog as an adult. And so she begged for a dog, and They drove all the way to Pennsylvania, her and the girls, and they bought this King Charles Cavalier. And Marty, he's an awesome dog. He really is. I'm not a pet person. I'm not.
Mhm.
The kids love the animals. We've got a couple cats, we've got fish, we've got a dog, and I'm not a pet person. But anyways,
Yeah.
Marty jumped up in that van and sat in her seat.
Oh, man.
This is months later. He just sat there, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to mess this up. So I walked back in the house, and I left him out there for a while. And you have to know, Marty, he's excitable. He runs, he goes, like, he doesn't sit still.
Yeah.
And once I came back out there, and that dumb dog
Still sitting there.
was still sitting in that seat. So, those are the things that you can't expect, you can't foretell, you can't warn somebody about. Like, grieving is just, it is what it is, and you don't know what's going to trigger it. But a stupid van. And I struggled with it. The kids kept asking me, what are we going to do with mom's van? What are we going to do with mom's van? I don't know. Craziest story. It's funny. It'll help me to stop crying. When I'm trying to remember if we were engaged or if we were first married. It has a great story. I said, hey, I think we were married. I said, hey, it's a Saturday morning. Let's go get all our oil changed. I'll drive the truck. You drive the van. I think Ella was with mom in the van. And so we drive the vehicles over to Chillicothe to the oil change place. And you just have to know Michael. Michael was so much fun. She made everything fun, even a oil change. And it just so happened that the timing was just perfect. So instead of us being behind each other, we were beside each other in the line, and they opened both the doors and pulled us both in at the same time to get our oil changed. I don't think anything of it. I'm like, okay. And so guy comes to my window and, takes my information, and they start working on my truck, and he goes over to Michael's window, and I could tell something was up. She just had a smirk on her face, and Ella was in the car. And next thing I know, the poor guy who's checked me in comes back over and says, hey, weird question, but the woman next to you wants to know if you're single because she thinks you're cute.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome, dude. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's so funny, man. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
So, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm single. And so I at this point, I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun because now I'm catching on to what's going on. And so I roll the window down and I carry on this conversation like we don't know each other and we're just flirting with each other. And how you doing? And this and that and whatnot. And so then we kind of go back to what we're doing. And he comes back over and says, hey, she wants to know if she can have your phone number.
Oh my gosh, dude. Oh, that's so funny. And the dude had no idea.
He had no idea.
That's awesome.
And so I write it on a piece of paper and I give it to him and he takes it over to her. And so this goes on for a long time. And I look over and he's talking to his friends, like he's pointing at us and laughing. And they're like, you can see the look on their faces. They're like, what? Are you serious right now? And so we get all done. And I go to pay for my oil change. And I said, hey, take my card and go over and pay for that woman's oil change too. And his eyes were this big around. He goes, really? It's $100. And I was like, yeah, it'll be okay. Go pay for it.
Dude, that is so funny. Oh my gosh, dude. So you guys never told him? You just drove up?
No, we just drove off.
Oh my God. Oh, that's epic.
So
that's
she's just
funny.
That was my wife. She's so fun. She was so much fun. And who thinks of something like that on the spur of the moment. She would. She just,
Yeah.
I had to catch. I was always catching up. Like I was always behind and always catching up because she was always doing something like that. But yeah, it was the best oil change ever.
Dude, that's a
That
great
poor
story.
guy. But
That's a
so,
great story.
so think of that. That van is sitting in my garage. Like, what do I do with it? And I know it's a van. I know it's just a vehicle. And so, we'd helped Ella buy an old Honda, and she was running the wheels off that thing. And so I remember one day I came home, I was like, okay, I know what I can do. We're going to trade this van in and help Ella get a better car. And so her and I, we go to the Hyundai dealership because, Hyundai's supposed to have really good warranties. And I was like, this girl drives hard and she's going to wear this car out. It better have a good warranty and free oil changes and all that. Right. So that's what we did. And we went and got her a different car. So for my sense of preserving, the van, Ella gets to carry the memory of her van in her car. And I know that sounds weird, but it's just,
man, I think that's awesome.
It's one of the things. Cool. It's just one of hundreds of things that, reminds you of your spouse, and you're like, what am I going to do with that? Or what am I going to do with this? Or how am I going to, you know what I mean? And I know it's a van, but I'm just giving you an illustration of just one thing that you worry about or work through, to figure out how or what you're going to do with this thing that reminds you of her, Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, man, what a great story. But I think it's awesome that you were able to part with that van with purpose,
Sure.
Because maybe most people would be like, oh, I mean, I guess I have to get rid of this because we're not really using it and whatnot.
Right.
But the fact that, Ella could then get a nice car for her that would, support her is cool that you could part with that in that way.
Oh, I just remembered another story because you're talking about things, memories, children. We're trying to figure out how to navigate, children and grief and losing their mom. And in the hospital, one of her friends messaged me and said, can you get Michal to give her children a voice message? And I was like, whew, I'll try. So she ran to Build-A-Bear and got the little voice recorders. They're just little round voice recorders. Got a whole bunch of them and brought them to the hospital. And I asked Michal, and we had to do it multiple times because at this point she didn't have, great quality voice. And so she would work herself up to a high pitch and, name the kid and tell them how much she loved them and how special they were. And this, and it was really good. And so we recorded these things to her kids. And I'll be honest with you, at the time I was like, oh, is this a good idea? But then after the funeral, they went to Build-A-Bear, and her and some of Michal's friends, several of Michal's friends, and they did personalized bears for each kid, and then put the recordings in them so that, after the funeral, it might have been a week or two, I don't remember. We gave these bears to the kids, and it has mom's voice in it. And, when they're sad or lonely or, need an encouragement, they can press it. And then they recorded it on several of them. So when they wear out, they lose them, whatever. We've actually got more recordings. And so I've got them in the closet, and the kids still have them. And I don't know.
That's so special.
But you were talking about how people helped out. Well, that wasn't even my idea. That was some of her friends saying, how can we preserve Michal's encouraging voice for those children, for the future? And yeah. So,
wow.
We've tried and done a little of everything, Yeah. Anyways, I just remembered that. I'd forgotten that story.
No, that's so special, man. And like the fact that somebody outside of your grief who was grieving the loss of Michal and praying for your family and loving on your family would think of something like that is so, I mean, the fact that there's multiple bears and for all the kids and stuff, like what a thoughtful act. And see, that's the thing when it comes to this podcast, Curtis, it's like, where do we step in, And I think, I think the answer is you step in on things that are that are going to create a lasting impact. Food's great and cards are great and you appreciate those things. But what really matters is what I'm hearing is like the people that travel from out of town that you haven't seen in years that are there for you, and whatever you can do to help a memory last just seems like, that's what I'm learning from this. I don't know.
Right. Well, I have a friend that I went to school with. I reconnected with him a couple of years ago. He lost his wife similarly at 34. Cancer, lost her really quick, had 2 young boys. And I've had conversations with him since Michael's passed. And, one of the things that haunted me was he said, those boys don't have a lot of memories of their mom. They were too young. And that haunted me. Like, I've got to do anything and everything I can to keep mom's memory alive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I remember that was a hard piece of information to get. Like, how do you keep mom's memory alive? And so we talk about her. We look at pictures and videos. There's so many things on that phone, and I now I've got it all uploaded online, so I can go and find that stuff anytime. And so I've tried to preserve it in multiple places. So the kids maybe someday can go through, and I don't know. I'm doing the best I can. So I haven't packed up her stuff yet. Like, I know it's hard. I've found, Quinny in the closet crying before.
No,
it's hard to go in there. But at the same time, I'm like, I want her to do that. I want her to feel and remember. And does that make sense?
No, dude. Yes.
Mom would want that. That's part of the run to the heart, is like, we're not going to run away from it. We're going to kind of dive into it and do what it requires for us to, feel it and be a part of it. And so, one of the hardest things ever was getting up in the middle of the night and hearing one of the kids just sobbing. Man. That's hard.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix it. And I knew they were also going to go through this in their own way. I would tell parents who, if their kids have to go through grief like this, don't shelter them from it. Don't hide it. Don't keep them so busy that they don't experience it. That is the opposite of what Michal would teach her children. She would say, no. We're going to feel it. We're going to go through it. We're going to seek God in the middle of it, and then watch God like do something with that pain. Now, there's no way that I would think this way pre-Michal. I probably would have been the parent who tried to hide from it, who tried to stay busy, and I see other parents do the same. But post Michal, she was right. She was right. She was right. Dive into it.
Yeah.
Headlong.
Yeah. Well, scripture talks about there being a time to grieve, and sometimes it's hard for us, especially as men, when you're in a place where you're supposed to grieve, but you're like, oh, well, I'll be strong for the family. And,
right.
Knowing that even God says, like, that's okay. Like, grieve this loss. Psalm 34 talks about how, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted.
Yes.
And what's so profound about that is, like, there's deep comfort there because God is saying, like, not only do I know that you're brokenhearted, but like, I'm there with you in the suffering.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to respond to your pain. And so we can find so much comfort in scripture, knowing that, like, number one, God has restored Michal's body and he's healed her for eternity. Yeah. And God knows that your family is grieving, and God knows when we're grieving because he loves us, he's not just like everyone grieves. He's
in the valley of the shadow of death. Yeah. He's there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, that's so good. It's so good. Goodness, man. Yeah. Just, yeah. I mean, all of these pieces of, I'll never forget my best friend from high school tragically passed away in 2013 from a fire. And I remember, everyone's there supporting him, and we go to the funeral and we're all just so shocked. And after the funeral was over, I'm driving home and I had a conversation with my dad, and my dad was like, Chris, he's like, I've never experienced like this type of immense grief, but what I've heard from people is that the most important thing you can do is make sure that you are checking in with them months later, years later, just to make sure people know that, of course you have to return to your normal,
Sure. Yeah.
but life's never the same for them. What can
No,
you
it's
say about
not.
that?
Yeah. I don't want to, don't take this comment as a hopeless comment, because I think people who've experienced grief and loss of a child, a spouse, a loved one, when I say the words, you're never going to be the same. It's not a, please don't take that the wrong way. It's just, you're not. Like you're different. You see the world differently. You see people differently. You make decisions differently. And so I would tell people, don't chase after trying to be the same person or the same things that, there are some things that are going to come back that naturally will start to come back. And there's some things that I have a couple people that I watch because I want, they're a year or two ahead of me in this. I'm at a year and a half. I have two people in mind right now that are like 3 years, and I'm watching them, and they're not the same people. Their priorities are different. I'm like, okay, what does that mean for me? It's just, life's not the same. It's just not. And so little by little, you'll find new purposes. You might even find new friends because, your friend groups just don't make sense anymore. And please, any of my friends out there, I'm not, don't take that the wrong way, but sometimes our lives just don't match or gel and so friendships can change, priorities can change, your purpose changes. Boy, I have a young lady, I've been friends with this family for, I don't know, 25 years. And, her husband passed away 24, 25, bone cancer. He went to school with my kids, and even played basketball as a kid with my son. Man, we struggled through that one. But his wife, she has purpose. She's driven. She's a nurse. She's working with cancer victims. And to hear her talk now and hear her story, and she's driven to this. When she interviewed, she just finished her all of her classwork, and she's taken this new job, and she's passionate about helping people and being there right in the middle of the hardest thing any family member is going to have to deal with. And for some of us, we're like, why would you do that? I'm telling you, it changes you. This thing changes you. You're not the same. And I was honored because she called me and said, I just wanted to tell you what I'm doing. Like, I'm working with amyloid patients. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I just wanted you to know that. She said, I'm going to be there when these people hear the hardest news. Purpose, right?
Yeah.
Who would, pursue that if they hadn't been through some stuff and had a new purpose and drive in life? And so it can be for good. It's some of the decisions you have to make along the way, like, how am I going to run into this and allow God to use it, and make purpose out of it. And she's an example of, diving in headlong. She didn't have to. She didn't have to pursue this work. She could have done, and she's a talented young lady. She could have done anything she wanted. But this is what she's choosing. Wow. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Curtis, let me ask you, as we close out this episode, and man, this has been so good. You just really opened up what it's like after the funeral, after the flowers, and kind of shared life with us, and how life won't be the same. And that's such a real and raw comment. But one of the main pillars of this show is that running to the hard is better when you run together. What does that mean to you?
Oh man, I'll never forget when we came across that whole idea. You and I have talked about two paradigms, because I started this episode with, I didn't want to talk to anybody, leave the food on the front door, right? Because I just need some space. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I just want to go to bed. But then there's this, I don't know, this responsibility. You begin to feel this responsibility, because then you have, in the last 5 months, I've had 3 friends pass away younger than me of cancer. And I know all 3 of their spouses well. And, I'll check in. How's it going? And so there's this club that you become part of, and this responsibility of, I know what I needed, and I know that their needs may not be the same, but they at least have to be seen. So how you doing? It might be as simple as that. And, sometimes when they don't respond, or it's a quick answer, like, it's okay. Like, I'm not offended at all, because I'm like, we get each other. We have this unspoken language, like, when you're ready, or if you want to talk. Interesting enough, just last week, one of them was ready to talk, and was a little, kind of weirded out at first about, having this conversation. But I was like, it's okay. Like, we get it. We understand. And she's like, yes, I love my friends. They've been so supportive, but they've not been through this. You know what I mean? And it was just a short conversation, but I think it was good. Like, it was a place where, they felt safe. They could share, and, even doubts about God. Like, man, I asked God for a favor to save my husband. Now what do I do? What do I even ask him for? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay to share struggles. It's okay to work through stuff like that. So,
yeah.
We're all going to do this differently. I don't know.
No, man, I think that's,
I think being just open to the Holy Spirit, prodding you to know when it's time to say something, or when to check in. I think that's a big deal. And then just being okay with whatever the answer is,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope that's helpful.
It is helpful. And, as we've covered certain topics in this episode, when we talk about running to the hard being better when you run together, you're mentioning, you're part of this grief club, and life's different, and it'll never be the same. And so I think that those listening who are grieving in some capacity can realize that you're part of the same club. It's not a club you want to be in.
No, it's not.
But how important is it to have those conversations and be able to, glean from each other's experiences as you run to this heart of grief, and knowing life's never going to be the same, but you do it together.
Right. Absolutely.
So we're going to wrap this episode up for today, man. Thank you again for just sharing your heart with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us. If you're listening to this, guys, you're watching, if you think this show is going to help someone else, and they're stuck in grief, and they really need a resource of someone like Curtis who's just breathing out his story of the freshness of grief and all of the emotions, please do share this episode follow the show, and we're looking forward to continuing this story. So thanks so much, Curtis.
Thanks, bud.